want to start by saying I've told this story maybe 4 times since it happened, and every time I tell it I notice something I forgot before. So if this comes out a little scattered in places, that's why. I'm not a writer. I'm just a guy who used to drive for a regional freight company out of Ontario, California, and in October of 2023, I had a delivery run that took me through Barstow, out on Old Route 66 near the rail yards. My name's Danny. I was 31 at the time, married, no kids yet. I drove box trucks for a produce distributor, mostly short overnight hauls between the Inland Empire and Vegas. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid okay, and I liked being alone with my thoughts on the road. That night, I was hauling a half-empty trailer of refrigerated goods to a restaurant supplier in Vegas, and I was supposed to make the drop at 6 a.m. Company policy was you couldn't drive past a certain number of hours without resting, so around 11 p.m. I pulled off I-15 into Barstow to find a cheap motel for a few hours of sleep. I want to be clear, I'd stayed in a lot of motels by then. Truck stop places, roadside dumps, the whole spectrum. I wasn't picky, and I wasn't scared of sketchy, but there was something about the Sundowner Inn. That's not the actual name. I'm changing it because I genuinely don't want anyone going there. Though if you know Barstow's Motel Row, you'll probably guess which one I mean. That felt off before I even parked. It was a single-story horseshoe motel, maybe 18 rooms, the kind with the exterior doors facing a parking lot in the middle. The sign out front had half its neon dead, so instead of whatever the name was supposed to spell, it just said fragments of letters, glowing orange against the black sky. It was maybe 61 degrees out, that dry desert cold that gets into your jacket around midnight even after a hot day. I remember there was a light wind moving a plastic bag around near the ice machine. This scraping sound, back and forth, back and forth. The guy at the front desk was older, maybe 60s, wearing a flannel even though it wasn't cold enough for one indoors. He didn't say much, took my card, gave me a room key on an actual metal key ring with a plastic diamond tag, room 14. I remember the number specifically because the tag had a black marker 14 scrawled over what used to be printed numbers, like the original tag broke and someone relabeled it by hand. "You're at the end, past the ice machine," he said. "Vending machine's broken, don't waste your quarters." That was basically it. No small talk, no "have a good night." I didn't think much of it at the time. Some people just aren't chatty at midnight. Room 14 was standard ugly motel issue. Brown carpet with a floral pattern so faded you could barely tell it used to be flowers. A bedspread that felt like it hadn't been changed in a decade, though it looked clean enough. A window unit AC that rattled when I turned it on, so I turned it back off. TV bolted to the dresser, playing some rerun of a home renovation show when I turned it on, the volume weirdly loud before I found the remote to lower it. I texted my wife Jess around 11:40, just a "made it to Barstow, crashing for a few hours, love you," and she sent back a heart emoji because she was already asleep, her phone just auto-replying with whatever she typed earlier probably. I don't actually know if she saw it that night. I never asked. I want to walk through the small stuff now, because at the time, none of it seemed connected. It only started meaning something in hindsight. The first thing was the shower. I took a quick one before bed, and the water pressure was fine. But at one point, maybe 10 seconds, the water went ice cold and then hot again. Old pipes, I figured. Motels like that, you expect it. The second thing was a smell. Not immediately noticed, lying in bed with the lights off, I caught it. This faint smell like an oil-based air freshener trying to cover something else. Not rot, not anything I could name, just a wrongness underneath a floral cover scent. Like when you walk into someone's bathroom and you can tell they just sprayed something because someone was in there before you. The third thing, and this is the one that actually made me sit up in bed, was the sound of a door closing. Not my door. Somewhere close, maybe 2 or 3 rooms down, a door closed at what I'd guess was around 1:15 a.m. I checked my phone, it was 1:17, and then I heard footsteps on the walkway outside my window. Slow. Not hurried. Just someone walking past, unhurried, like they had nowhere to be. I want to be honest that none of this is inherently scary. People walk around motels at night. Doors close. But there was a rhythm to it that started bothering me. The footsteps went past my door, then a minute or two later, came back the other direction. Then nothing for a while. Then again, maybe 20 minutes later. Same pace. Same direction, then back. At some point, I got up and looked through the little gap in the curtains. I didn't see anyone. Just the parking lot, my truck sitting under a flickering light, and the ice machine with its plastic bag still scraping in the wind. I remember feeling a little embarrassed, like I was being paranoid over nothing. So I got back in bed and tried to sleep. I did sleep, actually, for maybe an hour. I woke up at 2:52 a.m. I remember the exact time because it's burned into me, to the feeling that someone was standing outside my door. Not a sound, exactly. More like a change in the light. There's a gap under most motel doors. And usually, if the exterior light's on, you see a thin, bright line under the door. That night, lying in bed, I noticed the line under my door had a shadow interrupting it, like feet, just standing there. I didn't move. I know that sounds unbelievable, that I just lay there frozen, but that's exactly. I stared at that gap under the door for what felt like 5 minutes, but was probably 90 seconds, watching that shadow. It didn't move. No knock, no sound. Then, slowly, the shadow shifted and the light came back full under the door, like whoever it was had stepped away. I got up after that, obviously. My heart was going so hard I could feel it in my throat. I checked the deadbolt, checked the little privacy latch. Both were engaged like I'd left them. I looked through the peephole and saw nothing but the walkway, empty, the ice machine humming under its flickering light. Here's where it gets harder to explain, and where I still don't have an answer. I went back to bed, but left the bathroom light on with the door cracked, just for some light in the room. Around 3:40 a.m., I heard a key card, or what sounded exactly like the mechanical click-whir of an old-style key entry, at my door. Not fumbling. A deliberate, single insertion sound, like someone sliding a key into the lock. Then the deadbolt, the one I just checked, I heard it try to turn. It didn't open because I had the privacy latch on too, but I heard the mechanism grind against the latch, this metallic straining sound, twice. I was up on my feet by then, back against the far wall, phone in my hand, already dialing, but not sending. I said loud, "Hey, someone's in there. I've got a phone in my hand." Which in retrospect is a stupid thing to yell alone in a motel room at 3:40 in the morning, but it's what came out. There was no response, no more sound at the door. Just silence, the kind where you're straining so hard to hear something that your own pulse starts sounding loud. I didn't sleep after that, obviously. I sat in the corner of the room, on the floor between the bed and the wall, phone in hand, for the rest of the night. Around 5 a.m., the sky started getting that pre-dawn gray, and I made the call that I was done waiting around. I gathered my stuff fast, didn't even use the bathroom, and opened the door. There was nobody in the parking lot. My truck was fine, alarm still armed, nothing disturbed. What still gets me, was the door itself. On the outside, right around the lock, there were fresh scratches in the paint and metal, small like something narrow had been worked into the lock repeatedly. Not broken into, worked at, like someone testing it, patient, unhurried, the same unhurried pace as those footsteps earlier. I went to the front office to check out early and maybe say something to the guy at the desk, but there was a different person now, a woman, younger, maybe mid-20s, looking exhausted behind the counter. I asked her, kind of stumbling over my words, if there'd been any trouble that night, anyone reported near room 14. She looked at me for a second too long before answering. 14, she repeated, not really as a question. Then she said something like, "We book unless we have to." And when I asked what that meant, she just said the hotel had some maintenance issues on that side and changed the subject to my checkout total. I didn't push it. I paid, I left, and I drove straight to a gas station a mile down the road and sat in the parking lot until the sky was fully light before I felt okay to keep driving. I made my Vegas delivery 2 hours late. My dispatcher wasn't happy, but I didn't explain why. I don't think I could have explained it in a way that sounded like anything other than me losing it out on the road. I've thought about that night more than I want to admit. The scratches on the lock, I could rationalize. Maybe an old lock that always looks scraped up. Maybe a previous guest locked out drunk one night trying their key over and over. The footsteps outside, that could just be another guest with insomnia, pacing, killing time, same as me lying awake. Even the shadow under the door, maybe it was housekeeping doing an early round, or someone lost trying to find their own room. What I can't explain, or at least can't rationalize as easily, is that the woman at the front desk knew the room number the second I said it, before I finished my sentence, like she'd been waiting for someone to ask about it. And I never did find out what she meant by maintenance issues. I thought about calling back a few weeks later, working up the nerve, but every time I picked up the phone, I talked myself out of it. Some part of me didn't want an answer that would make it worse, and some part of me didn't want an answer that would explain it all away either. I wanted it to stay unresolved, weirdly, like closing it would mean admitting how scared I actually was. I still drive that same freight route sometimes. I've never stopped in Barstow again. I go the extra 40 minutes to Yermo now, even though there's less there, even though it costs me time on my hours. My wife thinks I'm being superstitious about it, and maybe I am. But every so often, usually late at night on a long haul, I think about that thin strip of light under a motel door, and how it went dark, and how patient whoever or whatever was standing there seemed to be, like they had all the time in the world, like they'd done it before. Story 2. The Palmetto Court Motel, Ocala, Florida. I need to preface this one by saying I don't sleep with the TV off anymore. Hasn't mattered where I am, my own apartment, a friend's couch, anywhere. I need some kind of noise and light going, or I can't relax enough to close my eyes. This happened in July of 2024, and it's the reason why. My name's Renata. At the time, I was 26, working as a traveling phlebotomist for a lab services company, which basically meant I drove around Central Florida doing blood draws for homebound and elderly patients who couldn't get to a clinic. It's a decent job, pays okay, but the routes are long and rural, and sometimes I'd end up finishing a route somewhere I couldn't reasonably drive home from that night. That was the case in Ocala. I'd finished a run of appointments, out past the Ocala net, way out towards Silver Spring shores, and by the time I wrapped up, it was almost 9 p.m., and I had another early appointment the next morning, back out in the same area. Didn't make sense to drive the hour-and-a-half home to Orlando, just to turn around, so I booked a room at a place off the old part of Highway 40, close to the downtown square, but on the stretch where the nicer part of town kind of fades into gas stations and older motor courts. The Palmetto Court, again, not the real name, was one of those single-story L-shaped motels built sometime in the 60s, the kind with a shared covered walkway and those metal railings painted this teal color that had chipped down to rust in patches. It had probably been a nice little motor court once, back when Highway 40 was the main road through town, and now it mostly served truckers, contractors on out-of-town jobs, and people like me passing through for work. I checked in around 9:40 p.m. The night clerk was a 50s, watching a baseball game on a little TV behind the counter, and he barely looked up from it when he slid my key across. An actual key this time, not a card, on a fob shaped like an orange. Room 6. He told me the ice machine on my side was out, and if I wanted ice, I'd need to walk to the other wing. I remember it was hot, the kind of thick Florida July heat that doesn't let up even after dark, and there was that heavy smell of rain that hadn't fallen yet, that ozone smell in the air. Cicadas going off somewhere in the trees behind the property. I got my bag from my car, a rolling suitcase mostly full of scrubs and my phlebotomy kit that I never left in the car overnight because some of the supplies needed to stay temperature controlled, and let myself into room 6. The room itself was fine. Small, a little dated, but clean enough. Floral bedspread again. I feel like every one of these motels has the same bedspread, honestly. A window unit AC that worked better than I expected, and a TV that got maybe 8 channels. I ordered a pizza from a place nearby because I hadn't eaten since noon, ate it sitting on the bed watching some rerun sitcom, texted my roommate Priya that I was staying over in Ocala and would be back the next evening. Normal night so far. The first strange thing happened around 11 p.m. while I was getting ready for bed. I heard what I thought was a knock on my door. Soft, maybe 2 taps. I checked the peephole and didn't see anyone, just the empty walkway, moths circling the light fixture outside. I figured maybe it was the room next to me, or a branch hitting something, and went back to getting ready. About 20 minutes later, lying in bed with the lights off, I heard it again. 2 taps, soft. This time, I got up right away and looked through the peephole immediately, and again, nothing. But this time, as I was standing there with my eye to the peephole, I heard footsteps moving away from my door, unhurried, down toward the far end of the walkway. Whoever it was had been standing right outside, close enough to knock, and by the time I looked, they'd already stepped back out of view before I could catch them in the fisheye lens. I want to explain something about my job at this point, because it matters for what happened next. Phlebotomists who do home visits get a certain kind of unwanted attention sometimes. Not often, but it happens. People who fixate on the idea of a woman coming to their house alone with a bag of needles and vials at an appointed time they know in advance. I'd had 2 instances over the years where a patient's family member made comments that crossed a line, and one incident about 8 months before Ocala, where an elderly patient's adult son showed up unannounced during my appointment and made it very clear, without saying anything explicitly illegal, that he'd been watching my schedule. I'd reported it to my company, they'd flagged the account, and I hadn't gone back to that house since. I bring this up because when those knocks happened at the Palmetto Court, my mind went immediately to that possibility, that someone from one of my routes had somehow found out where I was staying. I didn't have any hard reason to think that. It's just where my head went, fast, the way your brain jumps to the worst-case scenario it already has on file. I sat awake after that second knock, TV back on for the noise and light, volume low. Around 12:30 a.m. I heard a car pull into the lot and idle for a while, not right outside my room, but close, maybe 2 or 3 spaces down. I looked out through the gap in the curtain and saw a dark-colored sedan, engine running, headlights off, parked at an angle like whoever pulled in hadn't bothered lining up with the space. I couldn't see if anyone was inside from that angle. It sat there for probably 15 minutes before pulling out again, slow and driving off. I called the front desk, the same clerk like I'd woken him up even though it wasn't that late. I asked if there'd been any trouble, if he'd seen anyone hanging around my side of the building. He said no, said the lot cameras hadn't shown anything, though when I asked to actually see the footage, he said the system was down for maintenance, which felt like a strange coincidence even then. He told me to call back if anything else happened and hung up before I'd really finished the conversation. I want to slow down here because this next part is the one that still bothers me the most, more than the knocking, more than the car. Around 2:03 a.m., I heard my name. Not shouted, not close. It came from outside, somewhere past my window, low enough that if the AC unit had been running, I probably wouldn't have caught it. "Just my first name," said once, in a voice I didn't recognize, flat, almost like someone testing whether I'd respond. I froze completely. I didn't move, just sat there on the bed staring at the window with the curtain drawn. A minute or two passed. Nothing else. No more sound. I told myself I'd misheard, that it was cicadas or some trick of the wind through the trees, because Renata isn't exactly a common name that gets said by accident, and I needed there to be an explanation that let me stop shaking. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat with my back against the headboard, phone in hand, the little pepper spray canister I keep in my work bag sitting on the nightstand where I could reach it. Around 4 a.m., I heard footsteps on the walkway again. That same slow, unhurried pace, going past my door and continuing on, not stopping this time. I checked the peephole and caught just a glimpse, a shape, a person moving past the edge of the fisheye view, gone before I could make out anything except that they were tall and wearing something dark. I couldn't tell you if it was a man or a woman. I couldn't tell you anything useful about them at all, which is its own kind of frustrating, because I've replayed that half second in my head probably 1,000 times trying to pull more detail out of it that just isn't there. I left the room around 5:15 a.m. before it was fully light and sat in my car in the parking lot with the doors locked until the sky started to brighten. I didn't go back inside for my things until almost 6:30, and even then I left the door propped with my foot the entire time I grabbed my bag, moving fast, not looking at anything too closely, just wanting to be back in my car. I checked out at the front desk, a different clerk now, an older woman this time, and told her briefly what had happened, the knocking, the car, the voice. She listened, and I remember her expression didn't really change, like she'd heard some version of this before. She said and when I asked, kind of pushing, whether other guests had complained about that side of the motel, she paused just a beat too long before saying, "Not that I'm aware of," in a tone that didn't match the words at all. I finished my appointment run that day running on maybe 2 hours of broken sleep, and I called my company afterwards, both to report what happened and to ask, again, about that patient's son from 8 months earlier. Whether there'd been any activity on that flagged account, whether anyone had asked about my schedule. They told me there was nothing new on file. I have no evidence that connects that man to what happened at the Palmetto court. I want to be honest about that. It's entirely possible that whoever said my name outside my window that night had nothing to do with him at all, and I just filled in a face for a threat that didn't have one because my brain wanted an explanation more than it wanted the truth. But I never did figure out how anyone outside that window would have known my first name. I wasn't checked in under a name that clerk would have said out loud. There was no reason for a stranger passing by a motel room at 2 a.m. to know who was inside it, and say so, quietly, like a question they didn't expect answered. I still do home visits for work. I still drive through Ocala sometimes for routes out that way. I don't stay overnight there anymore, not even at a different hotel. I just do the long drive back to Orlando now, no matter how late it makes my night, because I decided a long time ago that being tired the next morning was a much easier thing to live with than lying awake in a motel room listening for my name again. Story 3. The Wagon Wheel Motel, Winnemucca, Nevada. I'm Marcus. I was driving cross-country in March 2025 for a new job in Reno, hauling my life in a U-Haul. I stopped in Winnemucca around 10 p.m., exhausted, and got a room at a roadside motel just off I-80, the kind with a horseshoe lot and a buzzing vacancy sign missing its fifth. The clerk, an older guy, gave me room 9, end unit, facing the highway. Cold, high desert night, wind rattling the... I texted my sister that I'd made it, ate gas station food, fell asleep with the TV on low. Around 1:40 a.m., I woke to knocking. Not on my door, next door, room 10, sharp and urgent. A man's voice, muffled, saying something I couldn't make out, then a woman's voice, quieter, pleading almost. It went on for maybe 2 minutes, then stopped cold, like someone had cut it off mid-sentence. I lay there, heart going, telling myself it was a couple's argument, none of my business. Then I heard something drag across the floor next door. Slow, heavy, rhythmic. Pause, drag, pause. Drag. My walls were thin enough I could hear the wood floor's individual boards groaning under it. It lasted almost a full minute before stopping. I should have called the front desk right then. I didn't. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was just rattled from a long drive. Around 2:15 a.m., I heard a door open next door, footsteps on the walkway, unhurried, and then nothing. A car door, an engine, headlights sweeping briefly across my curtain, then gone. Silence after that. Total silence, actually. No wind, no highway noise, which I only noticed because it felt wrong how quiet it got, like the whole property was holding still. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat up with my phone flashlight in hand, watching the door. At 6 a.m. I checked out early, told the morning clerk. Different guy, younger, what I'd heard. He didn't seem surprised, just said, yeah, 10's had noise complaints before, and moved on to my bill like that answered anything. I asked what kind of complaints. He said he didn't know, he was new. I sat in my truck in the lot for a minute before leaving, and I don't know why, but I looked over at room 10's window. The curtain was pulled back maybe 6 inches, and I could see the room was empty. Bed stripped bare, no furniture disturbed, nothing. Which made sense if housekeeping had already been in. Except it was 6:05. Nobody cleans a room that fast, that early, and I hadn't seen a single housekeeping cart anywhere on the property. I drove off telling myself it was nothing, a domestic argument, somebody moving furniture, my own tired brain stitching it into something scarier than it was. That's what I still tell myself mostly. 2 things stick with me. First, when I got back on I-80, I looked in my rear view and could have sworn I saw someone standing at the edge of the lot near room 10, just watching the road, too far to make out details. Might have been the clerk. Might have been nobody, a trick of the low sun. Second, and this is the one I can't shake. About 3 weeks later, settled into my new place in Reno, I looked up the Wagon wheel out of morbid curiosity, just to see reviews. One review, from about 8 months earlier, mentioned room 10 specifically. Said they'd heard a similar dragging sound, similar voices cut short, and that when they asked the desk about it the next morning, they were told the room had been recently renovated and to disregard any noise from work being done. No renovation crew works at 2 a.m. No renovation leaves a bed stripped and empty with the curtain pulled back like someone had just been watching out of it. I never found out anything else. No news stories, no records I could find of anything happening at that address. Maybe it really was nothing, some ugly fight between 2 guests who left before sunrise. Nothing sinister, my imagination doing the rest. I want to believe that, but I think about that dragging sound more than I'd like, that slow rhythm through the wall, and I've never been able to explain it in a way that actually lets me stop thinking about it. That's 3. If any of these happen to you, or something close to it, you already know that feeling doesn't really leave. You just get better at ignoring it. If you've got your own motel story, drop it in the comments. I read all of them. And some of the best episodes on this channel started as a comment nobody expected to turn into anything. If you want more like this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because I've got a lot more of these coming. And hey, before you close this tab and go to bed, maybe double check that door's locked. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.